Thank you. Well, I was asked to give a talk not on biomarker data, but on the importance of business model. And I've been around startups in the biomarker field for 25 plus years in 5 different companies. And it's so exciting to see the data here today, to see the progress in the field. But one of the things that we've learned over these startups is that great science without sustainable business model translates to a missed opportunity. So with that in mind, let's talk about Octave. We're developing a care management platform for multiple sclerosis. This includes tools to better measure disease as well as a management platform to see a patient's disease trajectory, to make more informed decisions, and to better understand and stratify whole populations. The platform is designed for multiple neurodegenerative diseases, but the initial focus is multiple sclerosis. This is a disease that has significant challenges, issues, and unmet needs, which you've heard about already this morning. We're creating powerful tools to develop and deliver new insights and management and better outcomes. It's a comprehensive solution that integrates multiple modalities, the best of new science, technology, and data analytics. And the goal is to improve outcomes for each member of the ecosystem. That of course includes patients, the physicians that manage them, the health plans or payers as part of the system, and pharma. MS is a chronic, lifelong, debilitating disease. 950,000 patients US, 2.3 million worldwide, disproportionately affects women, and an onset as early as one's late 20s. It's a progressive disease driven by inflammation and immune modulation, in addition to demyelination and axonal loss or damage. There are a wide range of symptoms and comorbids that affect this population, to which close to 50% are out of the workforce, tragically, within 12 years. That may mean by age 40. All of the innovation in this field has gone towards the therapies. There's 17 approved therapies, yet they're expensive at $60,000 to $100,000 per year, and have varied levels of efficacy and safety profiles. This is a patient population that will cost $3 to $4.5 million over their lifetime. The main issues in managing this disease from a clinical outcomes as well as cost perspective is relapses and progression. Relapses can be difficult to detect early. When they're not detected early, that can translate to a $10,000 to $25,000 ER hospitalization cost. Effective therapy can reduce relapses, yet use is somewhat unguided, and it may take 12 to 18 to 24 months to see therapy effect at the clinical level. These comorbids and symptom burdens that affect patients, they might include mobility, gait, spasticity, pain, fatigue, cognition. Depression accompanies 30 to 50% of MS patients. Issues with urinary symptoms, bowel, and ocular manifestations. As the disease progresses along the EDSS 10-point scale, the average cost tends to increase by about $5,000 to $10,000. And time to productive therapy really matters. An EDSS 3 is at risk of becoming a 4. At a 4, a patient may be out of the workforce. At a 5, they almost certainly are. So we think in terms of a lifetime disease, but we really don't have time. Time is precious. The issues and challenges. MRI can provide valuable information, yet oftentimes, particularly in the community, it's not accompanied with quantification, serial comparisons, or contextualization to use case, and often has non-specific findings. Remarkably, there are no tools in clinical practice today to allow for measurement of the biology of disease. So tremendous promise based on what we're hearing in today's meeting and otherwise, but not in the clinic yet today. And a limited ability to tell what's happening with these patients. There's an extraordinary range of challenges and issues that these patients face that are not being tracked along the way, and to think that with 2 to 4 15-minute office visits per year, we can accurately record what's happening with these patients is a mistake. The patient doesn't have really clear insight into the severity or the disease trajectory. 30 to 50% of patients are non-compliant to their therapy. They're 42% more likely to have a relapse. They cost the healthcare system $4,700 more per year. And it's difficult to find the right tools to track one's own disease comorbids and the 6 to 8 drugs in addition to the DMT that these patients are typically on. If you're a health plan, this is an area of top 5 spend from a therapy perspective, top 5 in specialty, rivaling typically oncology drug spend. The trend has been 2x in cost over the last 7 years. The therapy inefficiency often leads to medical costs, progression, ER visits, hospitalization. And with a population that's not well characterized today, it's difficult to envision fee-for-service transitioning to value-based care or other alternative payment models. Our profound belief is that to improve outcomes in this field, we need to start with the path of measurement and then an adequate management platform, and to critically focus on the physician-patient relationship, optimizing the fundamental care moment, thinking in terms of an informed care model with shared decision-making. Thus, we've designed an end-to-end platform for managing MS and other neurodegenerative diseases. And it starts with measurement, with biomarkers. How do we use blood-based biomarkers to survey and to reveal MS biology, to see shifts and changes in the face of productive therapy, to see flares or other manifestations before they might otherwise be seen? To track patients between office visits with the best of mobile tools, other technologies, including sensors and wearables, as well as a human component for compassion. And then how do we improve and optimize the MRI, their quality, their contextualization, and diagnostic precision? If we create a system where we have 3 high-fidelity, quantitative, objective measurement streams that provide a 360-degree view and are also able to track longitudinally, we then have data feeds that can go into structured models. For example, with biology, we've constructed a model that is built off of 400 to 500 publications and studies to see which part of a patient's biology has affected at a given point in time and to what extent and what intensity. Or if we're tracking a patient clinically, how can we track them within a clinical tree and look at where they are at a given point in time, which branching point, where were they most recently, where are they likely to be headed? And then for brain, to be able to look at a 3-dimensional model, looking at cumulative damage and burden that that patient has endured over a period of time. And with aggregated data to develop decision support tools that can be delivered at the point of care and the time of care. And lastly, from a therapy perspective, with 17 approved drugs, physicians often struggle to recall all the latest information from studies, dosing, adverse events, and other things that need to be taken into consideration in managing these patients. The Octave platform includes all most current, up-to-the-minute information for that physician to access in managing their patients. Let's talk about the first measurement feed. We've come to realize over the year the powerful possibilities of looking at multivariate biomarker blood tests. We're extremely impressed with NFL as a tool to manage this disease going forward. The importance of real-time assessments of underlying MS biology, pathways, and mechanisms is critical. We've devised 4 or 5 different product concepts that may be able to be brought forward over a period of time. The first, we think, is importantly disease activity, because that provides the ability to think in terms of who has active versus inactive disease, pre-therapy, post-therapy, response to therapy, who may have an impending relapse. And then lastly, if this is a goal, this is a field heading towards managing to remission or no evidence of disease activity, it's important to have a measurement system to allow you to know if you've achieved that. The initial program's focus is on integrating the best of neurodegenerative markers like NFL with inflammatory markers and those that measure immune modulation. To the question of where are we, we've measured over 700 patients thus far with between 11 and 1,300 biomarkers. And in addition to NFL, we're seeing some other promising candidates that number between 15 and 25. Some of our data was recently presented at Hagstrom's via 3 posters, including with our collaborators from the Brigham. From a patient insight perspective, we've studied a number of business models, including those of companies like Livongo and Amada, SonarMD, where the best of tech and human is integrated to provide a more complete picture of what's going on with a patient to ensure that there is durability of engagement with that patient and their care. Focus is on looking at disease worsening as well as the symptoms that are affecting that patient as well as their comorbids, and to make sure they're under adequate control, as well as to address the issues with drug compliance or adherence, which again can affect 30 to 50% of patients, particularly those with orals or injectables. And to look for early signs of relapse and run patients through a relapse protocol to avoid ER visits and other untimely costs. All of this links to a physician and alerts them of important events happening with that patient, as well as provides a report that allows a physician to absorb in 30 seconds or less at the beginning of the next office visit everything's been happening, as opposed to that consuming the first 3 to 5 minutes of the office visit. To the question of where we are with these programs, we're going into pilot testing with our first academic center in the next 60 days and looking forward to expanding capabilities from there. From an MRI perspective, it's all about improving the quality with quantification and decreasing ambiguity and increasing clinical actionability. We've developed a tech stack that integrates 6 different guidelines as an optimized MS protocol, technology to allow one to pull up off of an instrument and route via the cloud to us images for us to then produce quantification, serial comparisons tied to a complex ontology that looks at 270 different data elements per patient. This is coupled with expert neuroradiology, so the best of tech and human, just as the patient tracking capability, totally contextualized to the use case. So is it a diagnosis of MS? Apply McDonald's criteria. If you're looking at therapy response, to tie back to that baseline. If it's active relapse management, tying to the best of insights you'd want in managing a relapse for a patient. This also ties to a knowledge-based engine that surveys 1,000 plus publications on MRI MS literature to look for other findings that might be interesting and important for that physician and patient to consider at that point in time. Importantly, all images are available at the point of care, time of care, for physician and patient to review. The tech stack has been completed, and we're recruiting our first neuroradiologist and building our first image library of 1,000 retrospective cases for an alpha test. All of these capabilities roll up to point-of-care tracking tools to look at how to make the office visit a more enlightened encounter and to provide a rich clinical overlay with all of the data presented in a highly holistic perspective, as well as to then introduce selectively decision support tools and analytics, and to be able to look at an individual, but also to be able to sort and manage and understand one's entire population of patients. Going forward, there's some intriguing possibilities, including the ability to in a more granular fashion, to be able to look at patient-specific biology, and based on their pathways and mechanisms, which drugs might be optimally selected. And to be able to combine this with clinical phenotype data, as well as then integrate with a patient's preferences for risk, their profile, and tolerability. I mentioned throughout this discussion the importance of tools for physicians and the patients that I managed, but I also mentioned at the beginning the importance of the total ecosystem. And the path to payment or reimbursement in the area of innovation is often one of the greatest challenges that new companies or established companies face. So being able to look at solutions that meet the needs uniquely of health plans is really important. So a solution like this optimizes drug decisions, thereby reducing waste and improving patient compliance to their drug regimen along the way. By delaying disease progression, we affect short-term, medium-term, and long-term medical costs. Relapses are critical to be identified early when they can be avoiding ER visits and costly hospital administrations. And if all of this is done well, it facilitates network design that's optimized to highest quality providers delivering care to patients, as well as may introduce the opportunity for value-based care contracting. From a pharma company perspective, there are several things we think that are attractive about the Octave platform. First is a therapy resource center provides to physicians the most timely and accurate information at the point of care to optimize the use, the dosing, to avoid adverse events. Patient tracking capabilities which are designed to improve performance, increase engagement, and improve overall performance with patients. And we think that having standardized, uniform data feeds off of measurement feeds provides for a very rich environment for anonymized, de-identified real-world data mining. Insights are also provided for clinical trial design, phenotypes, inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, and optimization of patient selection. And lastly, importantly, to the extent desired, may facilitate the opportunity for outcomes-based or performance-based contracting strategies, particularly on the therapy side. The tech strategy is all about cloud-based, highly scalable, forward deployable capabilities. We're using Amazon cloud services, tools, and microservices. We're seeking to build the solution that's based on best-of-breed capabilities versus unique and individually developed components. Everything is built around API, plug-and-play concept, including integration with Practice EMR for read and write capabilities, and of course, all provided in a secure, HIPAA-compliant, privacy-protected environment. Summary. Business model is designed to provide the best of information, feeding into a management platform, to provide important tools to facilitate decision analytics, and deliver next generation care from a value-based care perspective. Thank you.